All right, let's turn to Ezekiel chapter 40. We're going to read from verse 17. Then he brought me into the outer court, and behold, there were chambers and the pavements all around the court. 30 chambers faced the pavement, and the pavement ran along the side of the gates, corresponding to the length of the gates. This was the lower pavement. Then he measured the distance from the inner front of the lower gate in the outer front of the inner court, 100 cubits on the east side and the north side. Once again, when we read this, you have no idea what Ezekiel is talking about. What is he talking about? What is he really just showing us? So first of all, in order for us to understand the outer court, let's go back to the blueprint again, so that we start from here. So let me share my screen. Okay, do you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the temples that Ezekiel is showing us. All right, so this outside the white space, it's outer court, and there's an inside here, which is like yellowish color. This is inner court. This is where the real temple is. Okay, so the rectangular box that you see, this is where the holy place and holy of a holy place. This is actual temple. But nothing like tabernacle, this design is a slightly different. Okay, so when we look at the outer court, all right, this particular verse, the outer court he's talking about is this outer court and this chambers you see here, the square box you see here, the square box over here. This is what he's talking about. So we're going to talk about what this is. Once again, let's just read verse 17 again. Then he brought me into the outer court. As I told you before, this is the outer court. So he's looking at it from here in, or here out actually. And behold, there were chambers and a pavement. So this is the chamber that you are seeing here. And there's a pavement. So let me just go back out and let me see if I can actually show you better diagram. Here it is. Okay. Once again, this is the actual, the temple. This is the outer court which I mentioned, right? And this is the chamber that I was talking about. Okay. So there are 30 chambers faced the pavement. So when you look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the entrance going into the outer chamber, which we talked about last week. So there are 5 chambers on the left side, and there are 5 chambers on the right. And same thing, this is the eastbound, and there's 5 chambers, another 5 chambers, and left and right. So there's the north side, there's a south side. And this is the south entrance. There is 5 chambers on the left side, and there are 5 chambers on the right. So when you count them, 10, 10, 10. That makes 30 chambers. But as you can see here, 5 represent grace. So the entire outer court is covered with entire grace. In order for anyone to enter into the outer court, this we have received the grace from the Lord to getting into the outer court. Okay? And the pavement ran along the side of the gate. So as I mentioned, there's the chambers alongside of the gates. This is the gate, this is the gate, this is the gate. So alongside of both sides, left and right, right? Corresponding to the length of the gate, this was the lower pavement. Then he measured the distance from the inner front of the lower gate to the outer front of the inner court, the 100 cubits on the east side and the north side. So from here, from outer court gate into the inner court gate, there are 100 cubits distance. So from once you enter into the outer court gate and going into the inner court gate, there is 100 cubits. You see this? That's what he's talking about. You get the outer court, right? Now, going into the verse 20. As for the gate that faced towards the north, so as I mentioned, the upper part is the north, okay? So as you can see here, the direction is the north. So this is the upper, right, which is the northbound. As for the gate that faced towards the north belonging to the outer court, he measured its length and its breadth. It's a side room, 3 on either side, and its jambs and its vestibules were of the same size as those of the first gate. So this is going back to same as what we covered last week. So what we saw in the previous verse in chapter 40 was the eastbound of the gate, which is, you see there's a chambers inside the vestibules, right? So there is 3 rooms on the northbound, another 3 rooms at the bottom side, which is the south. And now he's showing the north gate, which is this, which is exactly the same as what this is. So he's repeating what he saw on the east gate. Now he's describing what he sees on the north gate. Obviously exactly identical. So what we saw from the previous the verse from 5 through 16, he described the gates of the east. And now this is exactly same thing as what he's describing. Okay? So let's go back to that diagram that I showed you last week so that you can see what that was. Remember this diagram? So this is the room, right? There's the guard room. There are 3 guard room on the top and 3 guard room on the lower part. So there are 3 on one side, 3 on the other, right? So let's read it again. It's the side rooms, 3 on either side, and its jambs and its vestibules were of the same size as those of the first gate, which is, he's talking about the east gate, which he already explained. Its length was 50 cubits and the breadth 25 cubits. So the length is 50 cubits. So when you look at the 50 cubits from the entrance to the other end, this is going into the outer court. So from here to the steps, this is the 50 cubit he's talking about. And the breadth from here to here is 25 cubits. You get that? And its window, its vestibules, and its palm tree were of the same size as those of the gates that face towards the east. Let me go back. This is the window. And then when we go back, Let me see if I can find that. Right here. Right. So the palm trees is on here, right? This is what it's talking about. So this is the step, which is the entrance, and the other end is going into the inner court. Okay? So that's what he's talking about. And by 7 steps, people would go up to it and find a vestibule before them. So this is a 7 steps to go into the entrance of the outer court gate. Okay? 7 step. And the 8th step is going into the vestibules. Right? And find it's a vestibule before them, and opposite side of the gate of the north. So, opposite side, which is, going back again. Yeah, so this is it. So opposite side of the gate of the north. So opposite side of the gate of the north, this is the north. So opposite side, which is this gate he's talking about. So going into the outer court was the gate to the inner court. So now this is going into the inner court, right? And he measured from the gate to gate 100 cubits. So as I mentioned, from the outer gate to the inner gate, there's 100 cubits distance. You get that? All right. Verse 24. And he led me towards the south. Now he's actually showing us the south, which is exactly the same thing. So he's repeating. So he described the east gate. He talked about the north gate. Now he's going to talk about the south gate. But obviously, we're going to see exactly the same thing because each gate is designed exactly the same as it is. All right? And he led me towards the south, and behold, there was a gate on the south, and measured its jambs and its vestibules. They had the same size as the other, so exactly the same thing as the east gate as well as the north gate. Both it and its vestibule had windows all around, which we saw, like the windows of the other. Its length was 50 cubits, and it was breadth of 25 cubit, which I already explained it to you. So this is the 50 cubits and 25 cubits right here, okay? And there was 7 steps leading up to it. So we're talking about the steps right here, the 7 steps. And its vestibule was before them and had a palm tree on its jambs, which I already explained to you. On the door front, which is the front of it, there's the palm tree engraved to it. And there was the gate on the south of the inner court, which is this, and measure from the gate to gate towards the south 100 cubits. So from here to here is 100 cubits. So you get the idea now. So now you can see what you're reading. Can you visualize now what the Ezekiel is talking about from the outer gate to the outer court and what the gate looks like? And on the side of the gate, what chambers in there? Now we talked about the entirety of this outer court and the gate and what the chambers alongside with it. Now, Ezekiel is now going into inner court. Okay, so now take a look at verse 28. Then he brought me to the inner court through the south gate. So he's going into the inner gate, which is this on the south. Now he started with the east, north, and south, but now he's starting from the south inner gate. Okay? He measured the south gate. It was of the same size as the other. Its side rooms and its jambs and vestibules were the same size as the other, which means this gate and this gate, there are 3 rooms, exactly the same thing. All right? It's a side room. Its jambs and its vestibules were the same size as the others, and both its vestibule had windows all around it. Its length was a 50 cubit and breadth of the 25 cubits. So same exact thing. This is the 50 cubit, and this is 25 cubits. And there were vestibules all around, 25 cubit long and 5 cubit broad. Its vestibule faced the outer court, and the palm tree on its jamb and stairway had 8 steps. Exactly the same thing, but there's only one difference. What is the difference?
Had 8 steps instead of 7.
Exactly. Going in from here, 7 steps. But now going into the inner court, there's 8 steps. So once again, what is the meaning of a 7? What is the meaning of a 7? Sabbath. I'm sorry?
Jesus' number?
No, Jesus' number is 8.
It's 8.
So God created everything from the beginning, right? And the 7th day, he rested, right? And Israelites, they enjoy the Sabbath every 7th day. And on the 7th day, which is a Sabbath, what do? They rest. Right? So as I mentioned, from the very beginning, if you have actually learned from the Genesis, I talked about 7 means. 7 means is rest. So, I actually threw these questions to everyone at the beginning. Why did God rested on the 7th day? Was he tired? Then, why did he rest if he was not tired? Why did he not? Why did he? Huh?
From what I understand, it was completion. He had completed everything.
Yeah, completed everything, but why did he have to rest?
Because human need rest.
Because a human needs the rest? Anyone else?
To remind us that we have to go to his eternal rest.
Correct. Let's turn to Hebrew chapter 4. Hebrews chapter 4. We're going to read from verse 1. Therefore, while the promise of entering his rest still stands, let us fear lest any of you should seem to have failed to reach it. For good news came to us just as to them, but the message they heard did not benefit them, because they were not united by the faith with those who listens. For we who have believed enter the rest, as he has said, as I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. Although his works were finished from the foundation of the world, for he has somewhere spoken of the 7th day in this way. And God rested on the 7th day from all his works. And again, in this passage, he said, they shall not enter my rest. Since, therefore, it remains for some to enter it, and those who formerly received the good news to fail to enter because of disobedience. Again, he appoints a certain day, today, saying, though David so long afterward, in the words already quoted, today, if you heard his voice, do not harden your hearts. For if Joshua had given them rest, God would not have spoken of another day later for the people of God. For whoever has entered God's rest has also rested from his works, as God did from his. What is he talking about? Seventh means not because God was tired or he just finished the work, but when he finished, ultimately what he wants to bring us to his rest. That's the key. Why God actually gave the Sabbath to Israelite. Why God gave the day of a jubilee. Why? Because God is to keep reminding people that you must enter into my rest. If you don't enter into God's rest, we're done. We have to enter into his rest. So for those of the people who listens but rejects or disobeys God's word, they will not be able to enter into God's rest. So remember, there are 3 accomplishments or 3 finished in the Bible. The first to finish the work was when God created everything at the very beginning. He said he completed and he rested. And second time, when Jesus was on the cross, he said, it is finished. On the cross, he completed. He brought the rest into this world. The third finish, at the end, now go back to the Revelation, which is our favorite books. When you go to Revelations chapter 21, verse 5, and he who was seated on the throne said, behold, I am making all things new. Also, he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give them the spring of water of life without payment. What is God saying? It is done. So there are 3 finished. When he completed creating everything, he said, completed. On the cross, Jesus said, right before he died on the cross, it is finished. He completed the work to bring us into the salvation. And third, once everything is completed, now it's over. Everything what he created from the very beginning, he just threw them out because he doesn't need it anymore. And then once everything is complete and finished and done, what happens? He now brings us into his rest. So God is reminding us why we have to come into rest. As I mentioned, when we actually keep emphasizing to someone, that means because it is important and people to be reminded of it, right? God is doing the same thing. God is actually having us to go through the Sabbath every 1 week to teach us why it is important for us to really just to come into his rest. Do you understand? Hang on 1 second. Something happened here. All right. So, the 7 means coming into God's rest. So, this shows literally 7 into the outer court, which means we're entering into his rest. How can we actually getting into his rest? Now going into the inner court. For those of the people who really getting into the inner court, where the sanctuary, where the holy and holy of holy places, we have to step through the 8 steps now, getting into the inner court. 8 represent Jesus. Without Jesus, we cannot enter into the inner court. Coming back to Ezekiel again, chapter 40, verse 32. Then he brought me to the inner court on the east side. So now he's standing on this side because he's now looking at the east side, right? And he measured the gate. It was of the same size as the other, which is, he showed us the south. Now he's showing us east, which is exactly the same design as the rest of the gates. What is different here is when you look at the outer gate and the inner gate, they're facing each other. You see this? Exactly the same, right? But now the inner court, the entrance on this side rather than this side. It's opposite. It's like a mirror, right? And it's a side room. Its jambs and its vestibules were of the same size as the other, and both it and its vestibule had the windows all around. Its length was a 50 cubit, and its breadth a 25 cubit. So it's easy now to understand exactly what it looks like. All right? Its vestibule faced the outer court, and it had the palm tree on its jambs and either side, and its stairway had 8 steps. So once again, same as this one, right? Now this one has exactly the same thing. The entrance is on this one, but there's 8 steps. Only difference is here it's a 7-step, 8-step, but the rest of the stuff, it is exactly the same. Then he brought me into the north gate. Now he's moving into this gate, the north gate, right? And he measured it. It had the same size as the other. Its side rooms, its jambs, and its vestibules were of the same size as the other. And it had windows all around, and length was 50 cubits, and its breadth 25 cubits. Its vestibule faced the outer court, and it had the palm tree on its jambs on either side, and its stairway had 8 steps. So all around from here, all has 8 steps going into the inner court. Now you understand all the outer gate of north, east, and south, and now you actually saw the south and the east and north inner gate. Now you may be actually questions like, why is actually Ezekiel just repeating all this? I mean, he just described it just a one gate, and that should be enough. If Ezekiel only described one gate of outer gate or the one gate of inner gate, we would not know there are 3 gates. So he's just describing they're the exactly same design, but there is one on north and one on east and one on south. So he's describing exactly what he saw from outer court as well as the inner court. So because he described it, now we know there are 3 gates. On the outer court gate, inner court gate. Now, verse 38. There was chamber with its door in the vestibule of the gate, where the burnt offering was to be washed. And in the vestibules of the gate were 2 tables on either side, on which the burnt offering and the sin offering and the guilt offering were to be slaughtered. And off to the side, on the outside of the one gate up to the entrance of the north gate, there were 2 tables, and off to the other side of the vestibules of the gate were 2 tables. 4 tables were on the either side of the gates, 8 tables on which to slaughter. And there were 4 tables of hewn stones for the burnt offering, 1.5 cubits long, and 1.5 cubits broad, and 1 cubit high, on which the instruments were to be laid, with which the burnt offering and the sacrifice were slaughtered. And books, a handbreadth long, were fastened all around, within and on the table, and the flesh of the offering was to be laid. Now, it was easy for us to understand of this gate. Now we're challenged with the different things. So before I explain what he's just describing in this verse, from verse 38 through 43, he's describing this part. You see my cursor? The north side of the inner gate. Outside, when you actually look at it, there's something different. There's something more on the north gate compared to east and the south. What you see here is there's something more to it. There's some square here. There's some little, small dots here, whatever that is. Like this is something, and inside there's something in here, right? So this is the north side of the gate is different than rest of the east and the south. So that means there are more things on the north side than east and the south. So let's just zoom in to that site to see what that is. Let's see if I can find. Here it is. Okay, now as you can see here, we're actually zoom in to the north gate. Okay, now let's just read one more time. There was a chamber with its door in the vestibule of the gate. So, let's see. Where the burnt offering was to be washed. So there is a chamber. So here's the chamber. This is the chamber. What we saw from the square box that we saw on the northbound, this is where they wash the sacrifice animal. So this chamber is where they actually wash those the burnt offerings and to be washed. And in the vestibules of the gate were 2 tables on either side. So there's tables on either side. Table, another table. Right here. Okay? On which the burnt offering and the sin offering and the guilt offering to be slaughtered. So they wash it here and they slaughter the sacrifice animal on this table. Okay? And off the side on the outside, as one goes up to the entrance of the north gate, were 2 tables, and off the other side of the vestibules of the gates were 2 tables. So there's 2 tables, and inside there's 2 tables, and another 2 tables here. So there's 2 tables outside, 2 tables inside. And the other opposite side, also 2 tables outside and 2 tables inside. All right, the table is where they slaughtered the animals. And there were 4 tables of hewn stones for the burnt offering, a cubit and a half long and a cubit and a half broad, and 1 cubit high, on which the instruments were to be laid with which the burnt offering and the sacrifice were slaughtered. So in the middle, between the table, in the middle, there's hewn stones. As you can see here, 1 cubit, right? I'm sorry, 1.5 cubits, 1.5 cubit, which is square, and height is 1 cubit. So there's a hewn table right in the middle between the table. This is where they actually put the instruments to kill the sacrifice animals on this table. You get that? Oops. Yeah. And hooks A handbreadth long. So look like there's a handbreadth long, like from the palm of our hands to the top of the finger. The handbreadth, their hook is connected all around inside the room. As you can see here on this diagram, let me just blow this up. So this is the hook that you see. This is where they hang those things after they slaughter. So there's a hooks all around the room of the inside. After they slaughter, they hang those things over here. As you can see here, what's in here? When they slaughter here, imagine when you actually look at this particular area, what do you think you're going to see?
A whole lot of blood and gore.
Exactly. Full of blood. Full of blood. But once again, how many steps? 8 steps. 8 steps all around, there is the blood all over it. You understand why? Right? Because of the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, he became the Passover lamb. He slaughtered for us. And he was crucified for us and died and shed his precious blood so that he allowed us to enter into the inner court. So we must pass through there. Okay? Verse 44. On the outside of the inner gateway, 3 were 2 chambers and an inner court, one at the other side of the north gate facing south, and other side of the south gate facing north. And he said to me, this chamber that faces south is for the priests who have charge of the temples, and the chambers that face the north is for the priests who have charge of the altar. There are sons of Zadok who along among the sons of Levi may come near to the Lord to minister to him. And he measured the cord, 100 cubits long and 100 cubits broad. A square and altar was in front of the temples. So, now we're going to move into different sections. Let me see if I can actually find... let's see. Let me see what I can find here. Let me see if I can show different diagram here. Let me see. Okay. So once again, this is now shows the entire the temple here, right? This is the outer gate. There's the inner gate. There is the north inner gate, east inner gate, south inner gate. What you see here is there is a room on this side, on the north gate, which you don't see in the east side or the south side. So there is, when you enter into the inner gateway, there is some rooms here. So we're going to blow up that particular room to see what it looks like. Let me see. Do I have that diagram? thought I have that diagram. Here it is. Okay. When you look at this, this is the inner gateway, which is the northbound. So you're coming into the inner gateway on the northbound. Once you come inside of the inner gate, there's a two chambers, one on the north side, one on the south side. So let's just read one more time. On the outside of the inner gateway, so outside of the inner gateway, there were two chambers. As I mentioned, there are two chambers, one on this, one on this. One at the side of the north gate facing south. So there is the one that facing south. The entrance is facing south. And there is the one on the entrance facing the north. So there's two chambers, one facing south, one facing north. And he said to me, this chamber that faced the south is for the priests who have charge of the temple. So on this side, this is the priest who prepare for the temple. And the chambers that face to the northbound, and the chamber that face the north is for the priests who have charge of the altar. So the chamber facing to the south is for the priest who charge of the temple, and the chambers that face the north is for the priest who charge of the altar. So there are two different sides of the priest. So one who takes care of the temple, one who takes care of the altar. These are the sons of Zadok. Zadok was the priest of the priest of one of the priests who guarded King David. So the descendants of Zadok is the priest, who among the sons of Levi may come near to the Lord to minister to him. So as I mentioned, priest is coming from the Levites, out of all the tribes. But not every Levite can be priest. The priest could only become a priest if the person is the descendants of Moses. You have to be the descendants of Moses to become a priest. But there are multiple different types of priests coming from not Moses, Aaron, I'm sorry. The first priest was Aaron, not Moses, I'm sorry. So there are many sons of Aaron. So there are multiple different types of the priest. But whoever coming from Aaron down to the Zadok to to become the priest of that line is the one who ministers the temple and the altar. And he measured the cord 100 cubits long and 100 cubits broad, a square. And the altar was in front of the temple. So now, as you can see here, here's the actual altar. So when we go back out, let me see if I can find a better map. Excuse me. I guess this is the best one. Yeah, so this is the chamber that we just looked at, and there's the altar, right? So from here to here was 100 cubits, and here to here was 100 cubits. So this is the actual square, 100 cubits, 100 cubits. So that makes up this perfect square here in the middle, which is the inner court, right? Now, verse 48. Then he brought me to the vestibules of the temples and measured the jambs of the vestibules, 5 cubits in either side, and the breadth of the gate was 14 cubits, and the side walls of the gate were 3 cubits on either side. The length of the vestibule was 25 cubits, and the breadth 12 cubits, and the people would go up to it by 10 steps. And there were pillars besides the jambs, one on either side. So now we're going to take a look at the temple right here. This is the entrance he's talking about, going into the holy place now. Let me see if I can find the map. Since I have to go back and forth with the multiple map. Here we go. So this, let me actually go back out to the map. As I mentioned, we're actually describing now this entrance here. We talked about the outer court gate, inner court gate, now passing through this inner court, now going into the entrance of the holy place. This entrance is, the front is what we're discussing, okay? Now, this is the entrance going into the holy place. All right? Now, once again, let's read again. Then he brought me to the vestibules of the temple and measured the jambs of the vestibules, the 5 cubits on either side, and breadth of the gate was 14 cubits. So let me see if there's a measurement here that I can show. Let me see which map would be the best map to show. This map. Okay. Now, once again, this is the entrance into the holy place. So you can see here, this is the holy place and the holy of holy place, which is the most holy place. So this is the entrance. So he's showing us the entrance here. So going into the steps here. So outer court steps were 7, inner court steps were 8. Now, and entering into the holy place is 10 steps. So, once again, 5 cubits on either side. 5 cubits of either side. So the wall here, the thickness of this wall is 5 cubits. Okay? And either side, on this side as well as this side. And the breadth of the gate was 14 cubits, and the side wall of the gates were 3 cubits on either side. So, let me just blow this up again. So side, there is 3 cubits. So this is the pillars on both sides, right? So thickness was the 5 cubits, and from here, there are 3 cubits. So when, right here, we're talking about this, the thickness, which is the 5 cubits, right? And on the side, there is 3 cubits. Okay? So this thickness, 5 cubits, and this is 3 cubits. You get that? The length of the vestibule was 25 cubits. Length of the vestibules is 25 cubits, which means from, let me see if I can actually show. Let me see if I can show the other map again. No, not this one. Hiya. Where is... Oops. Oh, come on. One second. Length of the 25. And where's the measurement here? $26, $25 is $49. Hang on one second. Let me see if I can find 25 cubits. Vestibules 12. Let me come back to that. See if I can find a good diagram. Let me come back to that. All right, let's just move on to the next one. This is the length of the vestibule. $25. Entrance. Yeah, let me come back to that one. Let's move on to the next one. Chapter 41. Then he brought me to the nave and measured the jambs on each side. The 6 cubit was the breadth of the jambs. And the breadth of the entrance was 10 cubits, and the side wall of the entrance were 5 cubits on either side. And he measured the length of the nave, 40 cubits, and the breadth of 20 cubits. Then he went into the inner room and measured the jambs of the entrance, 2 cubits, and the entrance, 6 cubits. And the side wall on the either side of the entrance is 7 cubits. And he measured the length of the room, 20 cubits, and its breadth, 25 cubits across the nave. And he said to me, "This is the most holy place." So, let's just read it again. Then he brought me to the nave and measured the jambs, and on each side 6 cubits. So here, this is the holy place, and the wall here, right? This is the 6 cubits. 6 cubits. And the breadth of the entrance was 10 cubits. So entrance, so as you enter into this entrance, there is another entrance going into the holy place. So the gate inside the gate is 10 cubits. And the side wall of the entrance were 5 cubits. So the wall here, the thickness from here to here is 5 cubits. So the 5 cubits, here's the 6 cubits and 5 cubits. And he measured the length of the nave, 40 cubits. So now this holy place is entirely 40 cubits, the length. 40 cubits, 40 cubits, the holy place. And its breadth, 20 cubits. And from here to here is 20 cubits. So when you actually look at this, the size, this is exactly the doubling of tabernacle. The tabernacle size is 10. It's a 20 cubit and 10 cubits. So tabernacle was a 20 cubit and 10 cubits. But now the 40 cubits and 20 cubits. So it's a double the size of the actual the tabernacle. Then he went into the inner room, and he measured the jambs of the entrance, 2 cubits. So now he's going into the holy place. So now the wall here is 2 cubits. The thickness, now this was the 6 cubit, and this is the 2 cubits. And the entrance, 6 cubits, and side wall on the either side. So this is the 6 cubits. So the entrance was the 10 cubits, and this is a 6 cubits. The entrance size is different, right? So, now when you actually look at this, the entrance here was the 14 cubits. So this entrance is 14 cubits. Going into the entrance to the holy place is 10 cubits. Going into the holy place, 6 cubits. So the entrance is becoming narrower and narrower, right? And he measured the length of the room, 20 cubits, and its breadth, and 20 cubits across the nave. And he said to me, "This is the most holy place." So now this is the 20 cubits, 20 cubits, 20 cubits, 20 cubits. So inside, once again, this is a double size of the tabernacle. Tabernacle was a 10 cubits, 10 cubits, 10, so it's a cubic, right? So this is 20 cubit across the board. So 40 cubit, 20 cubit, 20 cubit, 20 cubit. So this is a square, right? Which is the perfect. Then he measured the wall of the temple, 6 cubits thick. So the wall is a 6 cubits. So this is pretty thick, right? The wall. And the breadth of the side chamber, 4 cubits. So this particular the chambers that you see here, this is the 4 cubits. 4 cubits, 4 cubits, 4 cubits, 4 cubits. Okay? Were 3 stories and one over another, 30 in each story. So the chamber is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So as you can see here, there are chambers all around the holy place and the most of the holy place. So there is the chambers around the holy and holy of a holy place. 30 rooms all around. That's what he's talking about. But now, there were offset all around the wall of the temples to serve as a support for the side chambers so that they should not be supported by the wall of the temple. And it became broader as it would wound up to the side chambers because the temple was enclosed upward all around the temple. Though the temple had a broad area upward, and so one went up from the lower story to the top story through the middle story. So, what is he talking about? Let me just bring up different diagram. Okay. So this is the entrance into the holy place, right? So what he's talking about, in the side of the chamber room that we saw, there are 30 rooms at the bottom on the first floor. There's a 30 rooms on the second floor. There are 30 chambers on the top floor. So there are 3 floors. So it is not just one, but 1, 2, 3. So there are 3 floors. But when you look at it on this side, the rooms at the bottom is a narrower. And as you go up, it's wider. So the narrower, little bit bigger, and the little bigger on top. So the wall at the bottom is narrower, so it is supporting from the bottom up there is stronger because the bottom side is narrower and the upper side is wider. So as you can see here, so there is a room 30 and 30 and 30. We could not tell by looking at the flat diagram, which is what we saw before. We cannot tell. There's only, just one room, right? But it is not one room. There's a first floor, and there's a second floor, and there's a third floor. You get that? So when you actually look at the diagram, it makes sense, right? When you don't look at the diagram, you have no idea what you're reading. And this is why I just kept saying, without seeing what the layout looks like, it's just impossible for us to really figure out what this means. Verse 8, I saw also that the temple had raised the platform all around. The foundation of the side chamber measured full reed of 6 long cubits. Remember last week I talked about the cubits as well as the reed. This cubit is different than a normal cubit, right? Typical cubit is from the elbow to the top of the fingers, right? That's the normal cubit. But this cubit is actually 1 breadth longer, right? That's the angel's cubits, I said. So there are 6 cubits make up the 1 reed. So when you look at it, this is the one I promised that I will show you. So the cubit, right? This is the cubit he's talking about, the long cubits. It's called amma. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously, I don't really count it, but it's a 6 that makes up the reed. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you. So at the bottom here, right here, So this is the actual steps, right? From 10 steps go up, right? So there are rooms. First floor, second floor, third floor. And at the bottom, there's a 6 feet, I mean not 6 feet, 6 cubit base, which is the foundation. So going back here, verse 8. I saw also that temple had a raised platform. This is the raised platform. All around, foundation of the side chamber measured a full reed of a 6 long cubit. So this is what he's talking about. As you can see here, this is this. So when you actually just kind of carve out the wall, this is what the 6 cubit is, which is the foundation to really just, you build the building on top of this foundation. The thickness of the outer wall of the side chamber was 5 cubits. So from here, the wall is 5 cubits, right, on the first floor. The free space between the side chamber of the temple and the other chamber was the breadth of 20 cubits all around and temple on every side. So, go back again. Once again. Uh, 41. Let's see. Twenty cubits. Oh, here it is. So outside of the holy place and a holy of a holy place, there is a 20 cubits here. Right? And the door of the side chamber opened on the free space, and a door towards the north and another door towards the south. And the breadth of the free space was a 5 cubit all around. So 5 cubits all around. 5 cubits, 5 cubits, 5 cubits. And the building that was facing the separate yard on the west side was 20 cubit broad, and the wall of the building was a 5 cubit thick all around, and its length is 90 cubits. Let me see. There's different diagram. So many different diagram, right? Okay, so when you look at this, this is the holy place and the holy of a holy place, right? And there's a 20 cubits. And now, after this, the holy place, there's another building. And this is the 90 cubits long. That's what he's talking about. And the wall is 5 cubits. This wall is 5 cubits. So from here to here, there's 90 cubits. Wall is 5 cubits. So that's after so this is towards the westbound. So after the Holy of Holy Place, there's another area, which is the separate area towards the west. Then he measured the temple 100 cubits long, and the yard and the building with its walls, and 100 cubits long, and also the breadth of the east front of the temple and the yard, and 100 cubits. So this is 100 cubits all the way from here to here. Total is 100 cubits and 100 cubits. So that make up the entire holy place, and the Holy of a Holy Place make up the square. 100 cubits, 100 cubit, 100 cubit, 100 cubit. So there are a lot of squares in here. Then he measured the length of the building facing the yard, that was the back, and its galleries on either side, 100 cubits. Once again, from here to here, 100 cubits he's talking about. Inside the nave and vestibules of the court, the threshold and a narrow window and the galleries all around, 3 of them opposite the threshold, were paneled with wood all around from the floor up to the windows. Now the windows were covered to the space above the door, even to the inner room, and on the outside, and on the walls all around, inside and outside, was a measured pattern. It was the carved of cherubim and palm tree, a palm tree between the cherubs and cherub. Every cherub had 2 faces, a human face towards the palm tree on one side, and the face of the young lion towards the palm tree on the other side. They were carved on the whole temple all around, from the floor to the above the door. Cherubim and a palm tree were carved similarly the wall of the nave. Okay, what he's showing is, he's showing inside of the holy place and the most of the holy place. So let me go back out. So inside of the holy place and holy of holy place, so there is the palm tree and there's a cherub. One side, human face. The other side is a young lion. So one side of the human face facing to one of the palm tree, the other face, which is a young lion, facing to the other palm tree. So when you look at it, palm tree, cherub, palm tree, cherub, palm tree, cherub, and from the bottom of the floor to the top of the floor, and even the ceilings is covered with entire room is covered in this. That's what he's talking about. Entire wall. So not only holy place, but also the holy of a holy place. So when you think about the tabernacle, when you imagine, where is the actual cherubs in the tabernacle?
On opposite ends of the ark.
So when you enter into the holy of a holy place, which is on the veil, there is the cherubs. There are 3 veils from the entrance coming into the tabernacle, right? There's a veil, and the veil on the entrance of the holy place, and there's a veil that entrance to the holy of a holy place. But there are veils on 3 different levels, but the cherub is only marked on the veil towards the holy of holy place. Once you enter into the holy of a holy place, there is the cherub is on the cover of the covenant, on each side, on the both side of it, the facing each other, right? So inside the holy of holy place, there is the cherubs facing each other. Now on this one, holy place as well as the holy of holy place, it's fully covered with palm tree as well as cherubs, as if the cherubs all around is welcoming, right? So the one of the palm tree, cherub, palm tree, cherub. On the top, palm tree, cherub, palm tree. So repeating. When you think about it, when Jesus entered into the Jerusalem city, right before Jesus was crucified, the Israelites all came together. They were using palm tree leaves and waving and said, Hosanna and Hosanna, right? Same thing. Does that make sense? Now, verse 21. The doorpost of the naive were squared, and in front of the holy place was something resembling an altar of wood, 3 cubits high, 2 cubits long, and 2 cubits broad. It's cornered, its base, and its walls were of wood. He said to me, "This is the table that is before the Lord." So here, let me see if I can find another map. Okay, here it is. So you'll see here in the holy place, there's a square box over here, right? This is what he's talking about. So there's a table. There is 3 cubits and 2 cubits and 2 cubits. It's also square, right? It's a table. Once again, let's read one more time. The doorposts of the naib were squared, and in front of the holy place was something resembling an altar of wood. So this is the altar of wood. But this does not seem to be the altar of incense, like the one we saw in the tabernacle. This table looks like is most of showbread table. So it's got the characteristic of the altar of incense as well as the showbread table. It is mixed. Altar of wood, 3 cubits high, 2 cubits long, and 2 cubits broad, which I just mentioned. Like this is a size. And its walls were of wood. He said to me, "This is the table that is before the Lord." And nave, holy place had each a double door, which means it's like a folding door, double door, right? Excuse me. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. So there's 2 doors. The folding side, the door. Same thing here. It's a folding door, right? So as I showed you before on the other diagram, so this is a kind of folding door, and there is a folding door. And another diagram, like this. You see the folding door? Like this. It's like our laundry room, the folding doors, right? It's similar to that. And on the door of the nave were carved the cherubim and the palm trees, each as were carved on the walls. So same thing, like the wall here, they have the smaller, the square has the palm tree and cherub, and cherub and palm tree, such as were carved on the walls. And there was a canopy of wood in front of the vestibules outside, and there were narrow windows and palm trees on either side, on the side walls and of the vestibule, side chambers of the temples, and the canopies. So all the walls on this side and this side and this side, all the the same, and the canopy is like this. So there's the canopies, and there's the palm trees at the bottom. Okay? Chapter 42. Then he led me out into the outer court towards the north, and he brought me to the chambers that were opposite the separate yard and opposite of the building on the north. And the length of the building, those doors faced the north, was the 100 cubits, and the breadth of 50 cubits, and facing the 20 cubits that belonged to the inner court, and facing the pavement that belonged to the outer court was a gallery against a gallery in 3 stories, and before the chamber was the passage inward, 10 cubits wide and 100 cubits long, and their doors were on the north. So, once again, now he's actually outside. So let's go to here. So this is the actual. So this is actual holy place and holy of holy place, and he came out, and there is the 3-story buildings, on the one on the north side and one on the south side. Okay, so there's the 3 floor. So let's go back again. So God took him outside of this the holy place, and he showed him this building, and this building. So one on southbound, one on the northbound. Once again, let's go back and read again. Then he led me out into the outer court towards the north, and he brought me to the chamber that were opposite the separate yard and opposite the building on the north. So there is a one on the south, and they're opposite. There's a one on the north. The length of the building whose door faced the north was 100 cubits. So let's go back to the different room, different diagram. Okay, this is the room. It's kind of like the flat diagram. So this is the building that we saw on the northbound, and this is the building on the southbound. Right? This is what we saw. Like, go back to this diagram. This is the one on the southbound, and this is the building on the northbound. All right? So this is north, and this is south. One on the north, and there's one on the south. And this is the holy place and holy of holy place. So, the building from here to here is 100 cubits. This is 100 cubits. Okay? The length of the building whose door faced the north was 100 cubits. So this is the one facing north, and this is the facing south. Okay? So the building facing to the north is 100 cubits. And the breadth, 50 cubits, which means from here to here, 50 cubits. And the breadth of 50, the facing 20 cubits, belong to the inner court. So from here, between the holy place to the building towards the north, there is 20 cubits distance. And the facing the pavement that belonged to the outer court was the gallery against the gallery in 3 stories. So this is the 3 stories, as I showed you before. This is a 3-story. And before the chamber was a passage inward, 10 cubits wide and 100 cubits long. And their doors were on the north. So, there's the chamber that was passed inward 10 cubits wide. So, between this and this, 10 cubits. This is the between the room on the north and room on the south. There's a 10 cubits. 100 cubits long, and their doors were on the north. The door is on the northbound. For the gallery took more away from them than the lower and the middle chamber of the building. As I showed you before, when you actually look at the actual building, the bottom is wider, and as you go up, it's narrower. Just like the one we saw here was opposite. As you go down to the first floor, it's narrower. As you go up, it is wider. But this is a complete opposite. The top is narrower, and the bottom is wider. For they were 3 stories and had no pillars like the pillar of the courts, though upper chamber were set back from the ground more than the lower and the middle one. So this is the wider, right? And the wider than the middle one. And there was a wall outside the parallel to the chamber towards the outer court opposite the chamber, 50 cubits long. So now he's talking about this. This is the 50 cubits. Now this was 100 cubit. This is a 50 cubits. So let's go back to the other diagram. So now this is the 50 cubits. Okay? For the chamber on the outer court were 50 cubits long, while those opposite neighbor were 100 cubits long. Below these chambers was the entrance on the east side as one enters them from the outer court. So, let's see. Here, entrance to the this building is facing eastbound, but the opening is on the northbound. That is what he's talking about. In the thickness of the wall of the court on the south, also opposite yard and opposite the building, there were chamber with the passage in front of them. So the thickness of the wall he's talking about. Thickness of the wall he's talking about. They were similar to the chamber on the north, on the same length and the breadth and same exit and arrangements and door, as were the entrance of the chamber on the south. There was entrance at the beginning of the passage and the passage before the corresponding wall on the east as one enters them. So this is what he's talking about. Once again, he's just re-describing it. Then he said to me, North chamber and the south chamber opposite the yard are the holy chambers, where the priest who approach the Lord shall eat and most holy offering. There they shall put the most holy offering, the grain offering and sin offering, and the guilt offering for the place is holy. So in this particular room where the chamber, this is where the priest eats the sacrificed animals. So they just don't eat anywhere. In the past of the tabernacle story, the priest has to eat inside the tabernacle, but not this. When the priest enter the holy place, they shall not go out into the outer court without laying there the garment in which they minister. For these are holy. They shall put on other garments before they go near that which is for the people. So depending upon where they actually going in, whether he go into the holy place or going out to the people, they have to wear different clothes. Now, when he had finished the measuring interior of the temple area, he led me out to the gate faced east and measured the temple area all around. He measured the east side with the measuring reed 500 cubits by the measuring reed all around. He measured the north side of 500 cubits by the measuring reed all around. He measured the south side of 500 cubits by the measuring reed. Then he turned to the west side and measured the 500 cubits by the measuring reed. He measured it on the fourth side. It had a wall around it, 500 cubits long and 500 broad, to make a separation between the holy and the common. Now, what we saw was this. We saw the temple area. This is the outer entrance, right? This is actually the eastbound outer gate, and this is the court. There's inner court, gate, and there's inner court, and this is the temple. All around from this is a 500 cubit, 500 cubit, 500 cubit, 500 cubits. So there's a temple all around. So this is the measuring 500 cubits. So that makes this temple so small, right? So he actually covered the entire area of the 500 cubits, make it square. Imagine when you actually looking at it from, from the top or from the sky. This is really just a big square, right? Now, this is what separates from the common. So let's see if we can actually get to. Let's go to Zechariah chapter 2. Zechariah chapter 2. Zechariah chapter 2. We're going to read from verse 1. And I lifted my eyes and saw, and behold, a man with the measuring line in his handle. Then I said, Where are you going? And he said to me, To measure Jerusalem, to see what is its width and what is its length. And behold, angel who talked with me came forward, and another angel came forward to meet him, and said to him, Run, say to the young man, Jerusalem shall be inhabited as village without walls, because of the multitude of people and livestock in it. And I will be to her a wall of fire all around, declared the Lord, and I will be the glory in her midst. What is the Lord is going to be? He's going to be the wall. So now, this is the actual wall that covers all around. He will be the one who actually covers the entire wall. All right, before we actually get into the chapter 43, I think we won't be able to close the chapter 43, so why don't we just cover up to this point today, and then to show the rest of the temples next week. Any question?